Welcome to the Bare Metal Cyber CCISO Prepcast. This series helps you prepare for the exam with focused explanations and practical context. Resource allocation is one of the most strategically important responsibilities of the CISO. The purpose of resource allocation and security programs is to ensure that personnel, funding, tools, and time are deployed in ways that effectively reduce risk, meet compliance obligations, and support business continuity. Allocation is not just about assigning tools or staffing projects. It's about aligning resources with threat realities, organizational priorities, and evolving operational needs. Through thoughtful allocation, CISOs balance strategic initiatives with daily operational demands. The process also reinforces the CISO's role as a senior leader, one who must justify decisions, communicate trade-offs, and drive outcomes in support of governance and organizational resilience. A well-managed allocation model ensures that the right people are working on the right tasks, that budget is spent in ways that improve security posture, and that executive attention is focused where the greatest risks exist. Resources in a security program span several categories. Human resources include full-time staff, security analysts, engineers, compliance officers, contractors, and third-party consultants. Financial resources are allocated to tools, training, assessments, audits, and project funding. Technical resources involve systems, infrastructure, and environments, ranging from endpoint platforms to identity services to cloud licenses. Time is also a finite resource. Scheduling implementation efforts, coordinating remediation, planning reviews, and handling incidents all require disciplined time management. Finally, executive attention and stakeholder involvement must be considered. Leadership time is required for governance meetings, risk decisions, and compliance escalations. Including executive bandwidth and resource planning ensures alignment and helps avoid delays that stem from miscommunication or disengagement. Effective resource allocation is grounded in a set of guiding principles. First, allocations must be risk-based. The greatest concentration of resources should go toward the most severe and likely threats. Second, allocation should be value-driven. Investments should be prioritized based on their measurable impact on business operations or risk reduction. Third, resource planning must be adaptive. Security leaders must respond to new threats, shifting business priorities, or changing regulations without locking into rigid plans. Fourth, transparency is essential. Allocation decisions must be documented, and the rationale should be traceable to assessments, roadmap items, or compliance needs. This supports auditability and trust. Finally, equitable distribution ensures that all parts of the business receive the support they need. Favoring certain business units while neglecting others creates silos and weak points that adversaries can exploit. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other podcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Risk assessments are a critical tool for informing resource allocation. By mapping known risks to specific business processes, systems, or domains, CISOs can identify where investment or staffing is most needed. Severity and likelihood scores help rank which areas need immediate attention. If a risk is both high impact and high likelihood, it should receive significant resource allocation. Emerging threats, audit findings, and policy violations must also influence resource decisions. A pattern of incidents in a particular domain, such as repeated access control violations, indicates a need for reallocation. Documentation is key. CISOs must record how resource decisions were made based on risk data. This documentation supports governance, provides evidence during audits, and helps defend trade-offs when resources are constrained. Workforce planning is another essential component of resource allocation. Roles must be aligned with control ownership, risk management objectives, and program goals. This ensures accountability and reduces the risk of gaps in execution. Skills assessments should be conducted regularly. If in-house capabilities are lacking in areas such as threat hunting, cloud security, or compliance reporting, training programs or external support may be required. The CSO must also balance the team's involvement across different activities, security operations, project work, governance tasks, and incident response all compete for limited staff hours. Monitoring for overwork and burnout is crucial, An overstretched team becomes inefficient and vulnerable to error. Succession planning must also be considered. When key personnel leave, their responsibilities must be covered without disruption. Planning for redundancy and transition helps preserve institutional knowledge and resilience. Project prioritization is a frequent challenge. CISOs must evaluate multiple competing initiatives using objective criteria. Scoring systems based on risk, value, urgency, and complexity help bring clarity to which projects should move forward. Coordination with IT, business stakeholders, and compliance teams helps prevent resource conflicts and uncover opportunities for shared effort. Identifying dependencies is also critical. If a project relies on system upgrades or policy decisions from another department, those dependencies must be accounted for. Timelines and milestones should be assigned to ensure visibility and accountability. Regular review, or aligned with strategic planning cycles, allows the organization to respond to changing priorities. Major business events, such as mergers or new product launches, often require rapid reallocation. CISOs must be ready to adjust priorities and communicate these shifts to affected teams. Outsourcing plays a valuable role in extending internal resources. Managed security service providers, third-party consultants, and contract staff can help fill skills gaps or handle surge capacity needs. Specialized services such as threat intelligence, penetration testing, or compliance assessments may be better handled by external experts. Routine or commoditized functions, such as log monitoring or vulnerability scanning, can be offloaded to free up internal teams for higher-value work. However, outsourcing requires careful oversight. Contracts must define service-level agreements, access boundaries, data ownership, and risk controls. The CISO must ensure that vendor performance is monitored using KPIs and that regular reviews are conducted. Outsourcing decisions must also balance short-term cost savings with long-term strategic needs. Relying too heavily on third parties without building internal capacity may expose the organization to risk over time. Measuring the effectiveness of resource allocation requires well-chosen metrics. For staffing, KPIs might include task completion rates, SLA adherence, and incident closure times. For budgeting, comparisons of forecasted spend versus actual spend and their alignment to outcomes help determine whether resources are being used wisely. Improvement in control maturity and coverage across time periods is another indicator of effective resource use. Stakeholder satisfaction and audit feedback provide qualitative measures of success. Regular feedback loops, such as post-project reviews or team retrospectives, help improve future allocation decisions. These assessments identify bottlenecks, underutilized resources, or areas where investment yielded lower than expected returns. Challenges in resource allocation are inevitable. Security, IT, and business teams often compete for limited resources. CISOs must negotiate effectively and build consensus around risk-based priorities. Justifying resource requests to finance or executive leadership requires data, benchmarks, and clear explanations of business impact. Surprising compliance demands or regulatory changes can disrupt carefully planned allocations. Duplicate or underutilized tools waste budget and create integration headaches. Organizational silos and over-reliance on specific individuals can create risk if knowledge is not shared or if a key person leaves. The CISO must anticipate these challenges and build resilient allocation models that account for flexibility, succession, and contingency. On the CCISO exam, resource allocation is assessed through scenario-based and strategic questions. Candidates must understand how to evaluate competing initiatives, align allocations with business and risk priorities, and defend funding and staffing decisions. Terminology such as capacity planning, headcount, shared services, and outsourcing will appear throughout. The exam will assess the candidate's ability to balance operational resourcing needs with strategic program development. Understanding the cross-domain impact of allocation on audit readiness, compliance performance, incident response capabilities, and policy enforcement is essential. Effective resource allocation proves the CISO can lead strategically, respond to change, and build a security function that is both efficient and aligned with enterprise goals. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Bare Metal Cyber CSO Prepcast. For more episodes, tools, and study support, visit us at baremetalcyber.com.